everyone. Over the course of the semester, I'm going to be recording several 5 to 10 minute lectures for each section, covering some of the main topics in the chapter and posting them up on the course webpage. So today I wanted to give a brief lecture on Socrates' defense in the Apology. So you were able to read a section of the Apology in your chapter, but if you remember, in the Apology, Socrates is basically on trial. And in this trial, he's being accused of a number of things. One of these accusations is he's being accused of corrupting the youth. Now, what does that mean in the context of this trial? Basically, what we find is that Socrates is accused of challenging the traditional values of his society. What Socrates does is he goes around and he questions people who claim to have knowledge, people who claim to have authority, and he challenges those beliefs. He asks them to show them that they know what they say that they know, whether it be justice or goodness or rightness, etc. And what he finds is that those in power in Athens, those who claim to have knowledge, those who claim to have influence, don't actually know the things that they claim. So when Socrates is accused of corrupting the youth, he's basically accused of teaching young people to question and challenge the values of their society. If we believe that the values of their society make them better, then by challenging these and questioning these, the authorities in Athens argue these young people are becoming worse. They're not going to have the accepted values of their time. So Socrates defends himself by arguing that yes, he does teach young people and anyone who's willing to listen to him to challenge and think critically about values, but that doing this is not actually corrupting them. The argument that Socrates makes in the Apology is that thinking critically about values, not just accepting them because other people tell you you should, is actually good for you. He refers to it in our chapter as the care of the inner self, or in some translations, he actually uses the word soul. So what I want to talk about today is how we can understand philosophy as the care of the soul. So if we look in the Republic, Socrates actually gives us an understanding and a definition of the soul. According to Socrates, the human soul can be divided into three parts. We have the appetitive part of our soul, which is responsible for our physical needs and desires. We have the spiritual part of our soul, which is responsible for our emotions and our hopes and aspirations. And then we have the rational part of the soul. The rational part of the soul is supposed to govern, it's supposed to guide, it's supposed to direct the other two parts. Now, for most human beings, the rational and the spiritual part of the soul is actually stronger and actually is what primarily guides us in our lives. If you think of an infant is simply an appetitive part of their soul. The infant doesn't yet have the rational part of the soul to kind of guide and direct their desires. An infant simply has desires and then does what it takes to get those desires fulfilled. So what we need to do over the course of our lives, according to Socrates, is we need to train the rational part of our soul. We need to build it up. We need to strengthen it. Now, the way we do this, according to Socrates, is through developing values. It's those values that help us to guide and direct our appetites, our desires, our emotions, our goals, etc. So the hope is that if we practice philosophy, we can strengthen the rational part of our soul to the point where we can actually guide the rest. If we do that, according to Socrates, we can have a healthy soul, a soul that's in balance, a soul where each part fulfills its proper role, and that soul will then be good. And if we have a good soul and a good self, we can be good people and live good lives. Now, how do values fit into this? Well, let's take a scenario where maybe the appetitive part of my soul is running my life. So let's say that I have a strong appetite to eat candy whenever I get hungry. So whenever I'm hungry, whenever my body tells me I need food, I have an appetite to eat Sour Patch Kids, for example. Now, if I do that, if I let the appetitive part of my soul govern my life in that sense, every time I'm hungry, I'm going to be eating a bunch of Sour Patch Kids. If I do that, I'm going to be doing a certain amount of harm to myself. So why would I not do that? Socrates' argument is it would require me valuing something in order to change that appetite or move it in a different direction. So let's say I value my health. If I value my health, I might say, okay, I have a desire to eat candy for lunch, but I know that's bad for me. So since I care about my health, I'm not going to. I'm going to eat something else that would be better for me. Or let's say I value my appearance. I say, you know what, I don't care about my health, but I want to look a certain way. And if I eat candy for every meal, I can't. So I'm not going to. I'm going to eat a salad or something like that. Or, I don't know, let's say I have a very expensive taste and the candy I like to eat costs a lot of money. I might say, well, I value my money. I value my bank account. And if I eat this for every meal, I'm going to, exhaust all the money I have, and I don't want to do that. So the point is that the way the rational part of our soul can govern the rest is through the use of values, the establishing of values, and the integration of values into our lives. And this is where philosophy comes in. Because remember, Socrates is accused of, and he admits that he does this, of teaching people to challenge and think critically about values. So if philosophy can teach us to think critically about values, it can help us to establish the right values in our lives. If it can help us to establish the right values in our lives, in essence, what philosophy is doing is it's giving the rational part of our soul the tools that it needs to govern the rest. So, in conclusion, what Socrates argues is he's not corrupting the youth. He's helping young people in Athens to become better by teaching them to think critically and investigate values. If they can do that, they can establish the right values, they can integrate those values into their lives, and then the rational part of the soul can do what it's supposed to do, the spiritual part can do what it's supposed to do, the appetitive part can do what it's supposed to do, and the rational part, through using its values, will make sure that when I'm hungry, I eat the right things. When I am in relationships, I treat people the right way. It can basically ensure that I live a good life and can be a good person. If that's what Socrates is doing, then he's not actually corrupting people. He's helping to make them better. And in essence, that's the argument that Socrates provides to defend himself in the